Hey, if you're watching this, we wanted to have a conversation about emotional and spiritual highs. I think sometimes we, in our, trauma-induced experiences in life, can sometimes look for these highs to rescue us and save us from our deficits. We see people in the spiritual space as Christians looking for the next conference high, going from conference to conference to conference looking for highs. We see people in relationships looking for the next relationship high. Can I just feel that thing I felt that one time that gets me that high? We see it with substance abuse. We see it in all sorts of different areas, like really, some that have negative perceptions and some that have positive perceptions, like in the ministry space. And so we wanted to have a dialogue about what true emotional and spiritual maturity is and how to maybe move out of that requirement for the next high to be okay, and actually how to move into this space where you're internally rested and settled with the Lord. And so it's a discussion that we're really excited to have, and I hope it benefits you in some way.
Hey.
Yo.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been busy over here.
Yes.
I'm very pregnant.
Oh, me too, actually.
With promises.
Yes.
Today, we wanted to just take the few minutes that we have, and we wanted to talk about
Getting high.
Medication, really.
Let's talk about Token the Ghost. Actually, do you remember that? When people were like, oh gosh, I was around some of that Pentecostal Assemblies of God movement where people would talk about Token the Ghost.
No, I never heard that.
Oh yeah, it was like this thing.
Only Drunk on the Spirit is the only stuff I've heard.
Yeah, but people were making a big thing out of it. It's like, I'm so high in the Holy Ghost. And it just, in retrospect, I'm like, that was kind of funny.
Very funny. Today, what we wanted to talk about is emotional and spiritual highs and lows, and how we can take really beautiful, healthy things and actually use it as a way to escape and medicate our pain.
Yep.
And we want to talk about kind of like that balance of stepping into maturity and what that looks like as we mature in our walk with the Lord, and as we mature in our emotional mature in our emotional maturity. So if that isn't the richest sentence you've ever heard me deliver.
So good.
But as we step into maturity in knowing how to navigate and regulate our emotions.
And I think sometimes people hear that too. Like I used to hear people be like, oh, passion is just immature. It's almost like when people talk about maturity sometimes, they're saying, I want you to be as bored with life as I am, and I'm going to label it as maturity. And it's like, well, that doesn't mean not having passion is maturity. It also doesn't mean not having great experiences is maturity. It doesn't mean not having joy is maturity. What we're talking about is not like having joy, feeling hope, having powerful emotions and powerful spiritual experiences. It's the desperate requirement of those highs to feel okay.
Yeah.
And it's like not feeling okay until the next high.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, and I used to experience this all the time when I'd experience sin in my life that led me into a deep shameful experience where I would just be really down on myself. I'm like, I'm terrible, I'm disgusting. Just whatever that internal voice of accusation and shame sounded like, I would start to wallow in it. And one of my go-to medications for my shame was, I just need to get another spiritual experience with God. Mm-hmm. So I'd rush to reading scripture. And I'm not saying reading scripture after you sin is a bad thing. I would also rush to okay, let me just get into worship. And it's like, I'm not saying worship is a bad thing after you sin. But for me, I was trying to feel this high with God spiritually again.
Yeah.
Get the tingles on my, get the tingles and the goosebumps. And in that way, okay, I'm spiritual again. There's this reminder I'm okay.
Again.
I would go out and pray for people on the street. And I actually had a mentor one time that said, yeah, if I sin, I go out and pray for somebody because, 1-to-1 now, the devil versus me.
Oh,
and it's
gosh.
Wow. And we actually carry these mindsets of, I just have to earn back to get to baseline again.
Yeah.
And maybe that high will get me there. And what I didn't realize was that was actually being informed by my childhood trauma, in that I learned to perform for love. Mm-hmm. And so there was this thing in me, it was like, I need to get that high of feeling loved, but I had a belief system that the only way to feel it or experience it or know that it's true is by earning it somehow spiritually.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was repeating the shame cycle though, because what would happen is I'd be okay, and then I would be looking for another high, but in order to experience a high within my life, I would have to experience a low.
Yeah.
And so it was like subconsciously, I was looking for these lows to go, and I was going from high to low to high to low, and it wasn't healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's called a shame high and a shame low.
Yes.
It's like a lot of us are familiar with the shame low of we feel like we're a bad person and we're not enough, or maybe you got stuck in some kind of sin habit or pattern and you feel disgusting, like you're not good enough, like you're not worthy of God. And we are familiar with the yuckiness of the shame low. Yeah. But what goes undetected is the shame high. It's us escaping in our spirituality. It's us escaping in, we preached a really good sermon at church, or we spoke up in the Bible study and someone cried or was impacted, or for me, finished all of the things on my to-do list, and that made me feel like I was productive and being efficient for that day, and I earned and rewarded myself with rest. Yeah. Like it's this shame high of like, I'm so good, I'm so productive, I'm so pure, I'm being so fill in the blank, and you are actually getting on a high, and it doesn't feel like the same type of shame as when you're in a shame low. Yeah. And so I think it's harder to detect, but what we're actually doing with this is we're using people or emotions or ministry or spirituality or intimacy with God, even the purest source of them all, to escape our shame and to try to get this fix. It's the next fix that makes us feel good about ourselves.
Well, that's exactly what people that struggle sexually, where there's like feeling powerless to urges and impulses, like sexual urges and impulses. And it can turn into, pornography addictions. It can turn into, sex and love addiction. I know there's like recovery programs for people like that. In even marriages and healthy couples, it can look really healthy when someone's like, I just have a strong sex drive. When it's like, no, you're looking for these big sexual highs because you feel inadequate or incapable of having true intimacy in any other way or form. And I think that's what happens is when we don't know how to be mature in our vulnerability, our emotional connection, then we're looking for that high that can almost cover up the rest of it. It's like love covers a multitude of sins. We're looking for that high to cover the multitude of deficits. Yeah. It's like, can I get a high that covers the multitude of downs that I have in this relationship? Okay, as long as we can have that sexual experience within our relationship, the rest of the time we feel disconnected. The rest of the time I feel inadequate to share my heart. The rest of the time I don't know how to pursue. Yeah. At least that moment can give me this secure form of attachment in a moment. I don't know how to create it elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. Even in relationships, I see it play out all of the time. If one person or both people struggle with shame a lot, there can even be this massive avoidance of dealing with pain and dealing with emotions. And it feels terrifying to them to feel the sadness or feel the shame or feel whatever pain is coming up in them. So they want to escape into the good times with their partner, or escape into, do you remember whenever I did X, Y, and Z with you? And they can't even tolerate hearing any pain that their partner is in because they feel so much shame internally about themselves already that it feels unbearable to hear that they could have done anything to cause someone they love pain. Yeah. And so it's almost this like avoiding and escaping into only having good experiences with a partner. Yeah. And that can obliterate safety in a relationship. One of the biggest parts of our marriage and our relationship has been learning how to hold space for each other when we're in pain and truly being that best friend for each other and coming together when we are having hard days or when we do have painful emotions, or even if there was something that, you did that triggered my pain, still bringing that pain to you and not blaming you for the pain in the first place, but having the safety in a partner, and you've done this so well, to hold space for hearing my pain and hearing my trigger and not taking on blame even when I've tried to blame you, but you saying like, I'm hearing that you're really hurting. And I totally get that this is big pain that came up. It sounds a lot like pain from your childhood. I'm here. I love you. I'm sorry. I get that thing I did felt painful. That wasn't my intention, and just learning how to hold space and being willing to lean into and sit in pain. And if you can't do that, it's a large indicator that you are someone who struggles with shame and is escaping your shame with highs.
Okay, so real quick, just wanted to take a quick second to say that if you're tired of feeling stuck in sadness, disconnect, or feeling powerless to relationship triggers.
Maybe you just feel swirly internally and you don't fully feel powerful to work through your emotions, and you really want to be more connected to yourself and to God. We really encourage you to click the link below the description.
Yeah, so we have like a full hub of all the courses we've ever created for emotional health, spiritual health. The best thing you could ever do if you have a vision for your life of who you want to be is to get help or mentorship from people that are ahead of you in some specific area. And that's in order to become the person that the loved ones in your life deserve.
In this hub called the Alive and Free Collective, we have a monthly coaching call with us, a monthly teaching and Q&A with trusted experts we love, and we have a community of believers on an emotional health journey. And like we said, all the emotional health courses we've offered, and a vault of over 50 trainings from the top emotional health leaders giving their best guidance.
It's only $47 a month, and you can learn all about that if you click the link below. And if you want to learn how to be a safe leader and coach others and start a life coaching business, you can click the link below as well in the description to learn about our program, Coach Launch. Okay, back to everything that's important. Well, like we were talking about this the other day, and Jordan Peterson mentioned this very interesting metric that was found when studying couples that were doomed to fail. So they've studied thousands and thousands and thousands of couples, and they're trying to reduce couples that fail down to some very simple metrics that they study, so they can go, okay, what do these metrics mean, and can we improve upon these metrics? And so they're looking at couples, and what they found was they can actually create metrics around how many encounters you have throughout a day with between spouses. So that could be, okay, you wake up in the morning, there's an encounter you have over breakfast. You might have an encounter over lunchtime. You might have an encounter over the phone at some point. You might have an encounter, and then over the weekend, you have a bunch of encounters throughout the day. You guys kiss here, you had a conversation here, you walk on the trail. So there's all these encounters. You can actually measure how many of those encounters someone has. And then what they found too is, okay, there are positive. There's a positive or a negative label that they've placed on these encounters. So a kiss and an I love you, that's a positive encounter. A thank you for doing the dishes, it's a positive encounter. An argument or a conflict, it's a negative encounter. And you made me feel this way and blah, 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 right? So what they found is that for marriages that fall below a 5-to-1 of positive to negative encounters are doomed to fail. So if it's at 4-to-1 or it's at 3-to-1, it's showing humanity's need for positive encounters.
So for every one negative interaction, you need to have 5 positive at least.
Yes.
For that relationship to be secure and successful.
Now, you hearing that's not an excuse to look at your marriage and be like, see, like, you provide only negative experiences. It's like, no, this is a part of you looking at yourself and taking ownership for, do I create positive environments within my marriage too, or my relationship? And it's discussing those things together. Hey, I notice I create a lot of negative encounters. I bring up a lot of negative emotions. I want to get better at bringing in positive experiences. Is that something that you would want to do with me in our marriage?
Yeah, we could
Here's a stat that
together.
I've learned, right? So using it to take ownership and as an invitation for a relationship, not to blame. That being said, here's the other very fascinating metric they've discovered, is when the ratio goes above 11-to-1 positive to negative encounters, those relationships are doomed to fail. You're like, wait, what? When a relationship has too many positive encounters versus negative, and it's like,
crazy.
No, it's because that person smiled like nothing was wrong, and they're actually carrying a quiet resentment.
Yeah.
That person acted like everything was okay, but they're actually not sharing in a moment they need to have conflict.
Yeah.
So things start going under the rug over time, and those relationships are doomed to fail because there are negative things that happen in our lives.
Yeah.
There are feelings that we have that are hard to share, and it is very important within marriages and couples and to have those those discussions, to talk about them. Yes.
And whenever we have the painful negative emotions, especially if we learn how to navigate them well, especially if you are bringing in pain without blame, without saying you made me feel this way and you caused this pain, but bringing in pain like, hey, whenever you did that, it actually triggered this pain in me, and the story that I'm telling myself or the message that I received in that moment was X, Y, and Z. Did you mean that? Like, it's sharing that pain with vulnerability. That can actually create more intimacy in a marriage and lead to more highs.
Yes.
In a positive way, lead to more secure attachment, deeper intimacy, greater feelings of trust and safety.
Yes.
And so you need to have those authentic experiences too, where it's like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And if you are resistant to holding space for that negative emotion and you don't have any ability to tolerate feedback or hear your partner have pain, or a person in your life in general have pain or negative feelings, that is actually a you problem. What is happening? And the question you can ask yourself is, what is happening inside of me where it feels so unbearable to hear or hold space for someone else to have pain? Because it's a reflection of you don't give yourself permission to have pain. You don't know how to meet yourself with compassion. I was actually reading, I'm reading the book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I'm reading it and I don't even know the title of it, but that's basically the gist. And it's so good. I've known that it's very in alignment with what we teach and believe, for the last however many years we've been doing this. Yeah. And I've yet to read it, and reading it now, I am just soaking it up because I'm so in alignment with it. And I love getting to read like the proof and the statistics behind why we have kind of camped where we have. So in the chapter that I was reading last night, the book was actually talking about and breaking down how if you have no relationship to self, you can't have a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. You have to be connected to yourself and know who you are in order to have a deeper connection with God, essentially. And as we treat ourselves with this like shame high and low of I can't tolerate negative emotions, how are we supposed to be able to encounter and experience God's love and compassion for us in the middle of our pain? Which that's what intimacy is. Like, Jesus didn't die on the cross to set you free from pain so you'd never experience pain while you have your life on earth. He promised that there would be pain, but that he would be with us, that he'd never leave us and never forsake us. Yeah. And I think we are trying to escape to this truth, like to live in truth all of the time, and for God to meet every single need and for us to find our full security in him. And though those are beautiful things, and though that can be a beautiful goal, if that is the standard, and you cannot tolerate sitting in any pain and being comforted by God and loved by God or by other people in your life when you're in pain, how are you supposed to have intimacy with God? Yeah. How is unconditional love supposed to transform you if you refuse to be met with love when the conditions are wrong? Yeah. I look back to my walk with God in the season where we started dating, and I've shared this before on the podcast, but I remember you essentially saying to me, when are you going to let God love you when the conditions are wrong? Or when are you going to love yourself when the conditions are wrong? Mm-hmm. And I just was like, there's no way. I was so programmed to trying to get the conditions right, trying to be like, this wasn't the language I ever would have used, but I wanted to be a good girl. I wanted to be pure and holy. I wanted to be full in my spirit. I wanted to be believing truth at all times. I wanted to have my fitness and nutrition, on point all of the time. I had this standard that if I wasn't hitting, I would do everything I could to try to hit it so that I could feel like I was lovable. And if I could hit those standards, it made it really easy to receive the love of God. In my head, in my delusion.
And your own love of yourself.
Exactly, though. Yeah. And I had a stiff arm towards being loved by God. Like I would share my pain with God and I'd talk to him about it, but there was this like hamster wheel in me where I needed to get out of pain so that I could get to the high of feeling loved again. and feeling like I was enough and feeling like I could be proud of who I was. And I remember leaving that conversation with you, and God said to me, when are you going to let my unconditional love transform you? And in that moment, it flashed before me that everyone around me saw my life and how like alive and full I was. And I really, like, I had a lot of things dialed in a beautiful way. And it was inspiring to see. I seemed very powerful and connected, and I was, but there was just this huge missing piece where I realized every time someone asked me how I got to become the person I was, I would give credit to these like different tools. And in that moment when God said that to me, I realized, wow, I can't actually say the love of God is the thing that transformed me, because I never let his love in. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I loved myself whenever I was doing good, and so I'd receive his love in those moments. But if I wasn't doing well and hitting that standard, I wouldn't love myself, and therefore I'd stiff arm his love.
So when you hit the standard, you got these highs, probably.
I was escaping in the high as often as I possibly could.
Yes.
And a lot of us are doing that in different areas of our life, if not every area. And we're actually using ministry and spirituality and people and emotions as a high because we have so much shame.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in a season where I was just always funny. Everybody was laughing at me. I was always entertaining, and I always just had a quick thing to say. And I had a friend one time who told me, it's like, hey, dude, like, actually, here's the crazy thing. I shared something vulnerable. I got very real with a buddy, and he told me, he's like, I got to be honest with you, man. This is actually one of my favorite experiences I've ever had of you, because I feel like you're always good, always have the things to say, always entertaining. And now I finally am like getting to know the real Spencer. It's kind of refreshing to finally get to hear this part of you. And I just had this thing in my brain that was like, what?
You like
and
this?
For years, literally for years, I was the guy that always had testimonies of people getting healed or saved on the streets. Yeah. I was always funny, always like powerful in my communication on stage somewhere in ministry. I was like living up here, and I had this secret life that was, I had some struggle with pornography. It was like maybe once or twice a month, and I'd have moments where I'd be like down on myself, but then it was like 99% of the time I was living up here, and it was just like, but I didn't let people into my inner world where it hurt.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my gosh, this is refreshing to somebody.
Yeah.
And it was like, what the heck? And I remember having this moment where a pastor asked me, like, who's the Spencer I never got to meet? And when I shared like all this stuff, I was shaking in shame. And she was like, this is the Spencer I wanted to get to know. I love this Spencer. And it just was like, what?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I was living so much in this high. Like, I think back in Revelation, and I think it's actually in one of the Gospels too. I think it's in Matthew maybe, where at the end of Scripture they say, Lord, Lord, did we not cast out demons in your name, heal the sick in your name, raise the dead in your name? Like, how many people listening to this podcast can say, I've raised the dead? Or maybe you haven't even walked in healing yet, or a prophetic word or anything like that, or cast out demons. That's okay. First off, we're all on a journey, but I would say, also run after those things. It's given to us.
But can you imagine seeing that much power happen in your life?
But here's the thing. I remember the motivation of wanting to be the guy that had the testimony to be a pleasing son to God. Like, I was the guy that had enough faith to believe for this miracle. And it is a crazy, emotionally, spiritually charged moment when you see somebody get healed or get delivered of demons and give their life to Jesus in a moment. It is like so crazy powerful experiencing something like that. And there is a high that you experience that you want to move from high to high. And it became a medication to me in a season. And I'm like, man, those people at the end, Jesus said, depart from me. I never knew you. Yeah. So wait a second. These people were living so much in the high of seeing crazy miracles that Jesus never even got to know them.
Yeah, on an emotional, intimate level.
Yeah. And if we look at like God identifying, well, who is a man after God's heart? David was constantly sharing praise in the Psalms and his most difficult and painful emotions he ever felt. Yeah. And God identified him as a man after his own heart.
Amidst all of his failures.
Yes.
So many failures. And God said he's a man after my heart.
But it's because he invited God into every aspect. Yeah. He would praise him in worship, undignified, not caring what anybody thought. And he would have moments where he's like, I am abandoned, utterly at my worst. My enemies are against me.
So
Where
honest.
have you been? You know, he's just like, his heart is so bare to God.
Yeah.
He's the first person he runs to, the first person he communicates with. And we have to examine, why don't I feel like I can function in that way? I have to look at that. And when I'm not, guess what? I am moving from high to high.
Yeah.
In some way, I'm looking for it in business, in relationship, in fatherhood, something that can just give me that sense of like, oh, I'm worth something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And, you know, even for you coaches out there and for our clients that are in Coach Launch, or those of you who've been listening to our podcast because you are wanting to learn and you feel called and led to help and serve in that way, it can be so sneaky, the high of helping people.
Yeah.
The high of seeing someone get breakthrough, the high of seeing someone get loved, the high of watching your client transform in front of your eyes because of the way that you're pouring into them. There's this sneaky thing I remember feeling where I felt really, really good about myself, and my mood would be really, really good if my client had an encounter with God. And though there's a healthy aspect of this.
Yes.
Like, it's beautiful to be like, I got to watch someone get touched by God today, and they got it for the first time. They had this beautiful encounter. They got met with love and compassion. They had all these things click for them, and they encountered God. That should feel good. That should be a beautiful experience where you are getting to, like, I love the moment whenever I'm coaching a client through pain or trauma or whatever, where I'm feeling God's heart for them, or God's talking to me about how to navigate the next moment of their emotional pain to get them into an encounter with him. Like, getting to have these moments of revelation and wisdom deposit in you, getting moved by God with compassion. So beautiful to be touched by God in a moment like that while you're loving someone else. So it should be beautiful. It's why I've done it for so long, because it's such a gift. Even getting to talk about this stuff on podcasts, like, I feel his presence now. It's so life-giving. So hear me say, there is a healthy way where you can experience the gratitude and beauty of these moments.
Yeah.
But if you are on a high because you helped someone and you feel good about yourself, but then you feel low on a day where you didn't serve, or a day where you didn't get someone breakthrough, or a day where you didn't get seen or noticed or appreciated by someone, and now you're in a low, that lets you know that was your medication.
Yeah.
You were using that experience, you were using that client, that coaching session, that encounter with God, you getting to pray and serve and pour out as a way to get a need for purpose met, for example. And I caught that early on in my coaching, where it's like, man, I feel really good on the days where I'm coaching, and my sense of identity feels kind of threatened on the days where I'm not helping or serving or leading or loving or doing ministry. And the goal is, how can I love and embrace and bring compassion to every version of me, so that when I am just existing, whenever someone is, whenever I say no to helping someone because I don't feel capacity to, that I feel and believe that I'm just as lovable, that I'm just as worthy, that I am just as good of a person, that I am enough in who I am, even if I don't do that thing. Yeah.
Well, can I make this highly practical?
Please.
So what a lot of people will do listening to a podcast like this is be like, cool, I'm just going to eliminate highs from my life. It's like, that sounds like a boring life.
Yeah.
I just have to say, it's like, no. All I would recommend is, okay, in the moments where you feel a low, as much as you are able to, just get present in that, and to invite God into that moment.
Present. What am I feeling right now?
Yep, what am I feeling?
When did I start feeling that emotion? Like, what triggered it? And where did that come from in the first place?
Yeah. And you know, what do I believe about myself in the midst of this environment? Is there any like dirty lies, like the dirty pain around it? Is there any lies that I'm believing that I've partnered with inside of this pain? And God, what do you want me to know about it? And how are you loving me? You know, inviting him into it. If you don't and you miss it for a week is okay.
Yeah.
Well, now when's the next time? Staying curious and inviting him into it. It's going, okay, before I go to my normal, okay, I'm going to work out to fix the emotion, or I'm going to try and get that next business deal, or I'm going to try and help somebody, or I'm going to pray for someone, or I'm going to jump into whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever your high is, or like in relationship, waiting. Okay, sit in the waiting and practice that. Let me be present with those different things, be aware of what's going on. Let me invite love into this moment now. Yeah. What do you say about me? Who am I to you? How are you loving me in the midst of this? And then give yourself at least a few minutes there and then move on. Yeah. It's like simple practices like that. It's actually getting love and compassion into the wounds that keep us from needing to rush to a high to be okay.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, highs are great in our lives. It's just when you don't need them. It's like, I always told this to people like early on, like years and years ago, like, don't drink to feel better, drink to feel even better. It's like, don't drink when you're depressed and you want to feel joy. It's like, no, if you're feeling good, you feel hope, you feel joy, it's not going to feel like a medicating source to you. You're just going to be like, oh,
it's a gift added.
Yeah. I don't want to be dissociated. I don't want to be unpresent. I want to stay sharp.
Now it is actually the drink of good cheer, like it refers to in Scripture.
Exactly. So, it's like, let these things in your life be a pleasure added and not something you desperately require to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I'm navigating right now in motherhood is being a mother and being pregnant. I'm so tired so frequently. And I really struggle to be the type of gracious and patient mom I want to be whenever I am really exhausted. And so I feel like I am reacting more with Wilder and getting impatient. And I feel sad about that. And I focus on repair all of the time. I take ownership for the messes that I make with him. But I am trying to figure out how can I show up the way I want to as a mom, even when I'm tired? And the root of that is like, I want to be a good mom and I want to love my son really, really well. And I'm compassionate with myself whenever I make mistakes. But one thing I realized today, I was processing with my coach today, I noticed that it's when I'm tired that I have the reactions that I don't like. Yeah. And I'm normally in those moments trying to get through my to-do list really fast so that I can rest and so I can just play with Wilder. And so what I'm doing in those moments, like yesterday, I'm folding all the laundry and then he knocks all of the laundry off of the couch after I folded it. And it was my last chore that I needed to do. And I was so frustrated and I bulldozed my heart in that moment because I wanted to just finish what I needed to do so that I could rest. Yeah. When really me being impatient with like, who cares if the laundry's a mess? Who cares if it didn't get done that day? Yeah. But I can't connect with that in that moment because I am being fueled by this belief that I need to finish all of my chores before I can rest. So I'm saying I'm going to bulldoze my heart meantime so I can finally get to a place where I've earned rest, connection, compassion.
And since you've bulldozed your own heart, it's okay to bulldoze his heart.
I'm going to bulldoze my son's heart too. Yeah. And so in these moments, I like a marker that I'm doing for myself right now, because it's easy to embrace myself in the tired version of me. Yeah. It's easy to embrace myself in the lows. I've gotten to work on a lot of these different areas where I feel really well balanced and it feels easy to love and accept all these different versions of me. But this is an area that I'm really having to go after. And so I'm letting the moment, the clothes get knocked off the couch and I'm feeling really frustrated and impatient. I'm trying to make that my marker point of, my impatience in this moment is my check engine light. It's not, I need to get this done so I can rest. It's, I need to pause right here and right now and embrace the mess and embrace how chaotic it feels that I just knocked everything off the couch, or that I, just did all that and he knocked everything off the couch. Why does this feel so hard for me? Yeah. Why does this feel so chaotic and out of control? And how can I rest and take a breath now? Screw the laundry, let the laundry be done later. How can I be with me here right now and give myself love and compassion and accept the fact that I'm really exhausted, and then move on once I'm rested instead of bulldozing in order to rest.
And what people even do that sounds really good is just rush to repair with their child.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, you're doing that from here in your brain.
Yeah.
And you're like, logically, you're not doing it from a place of like actual true comfort and love within yourself. And your child will feel the energy exchange.
And they will carry that and respond to it for the rest of their life. And so I'm having to practice this in my own life of how can I stop and pay attention to what's going on in me in this area, because I'm noticing I'm showing up in a way that I don't want to. And I want Wilder to have room to make mess, just like I deserve to have room to be in mess emotionally and to not show up like the mom that I wish I could be 100% of the time. But so we wanted to just invite you guys into this conversation. You can wrap up because I have to go and get our son.
I'll just do it real quick. If you appreciated this episode, you like the conversation, leave us a review or rate the podcast. We haven't asked for that in a long time.
Share it with a friend.
Share it to
your Instagram. Link us, tag us. It blesses us so much.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Hope this was helpful.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.